Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Thoughts with Nick. No rain so far today, so thankfully we were able to get back outside for this week's episode. And it's just still the beginning of spring, not quite warm yet, but we got some birds chirping in the background, some woodpeckers going to town on the trees, so hopefully you'll be able to enjoy some of the natural ambiance going on in the background. And without further ado, we're going to begin with a quote as per usual. So, this week we got two, both coming from Mr. Benjamin Franklin. First up is, "You may delay, but time will not." And second, "Lost time is never found." If you don't know who Benjamin Franklin was, I would definitely recommend looking him up, checking him out. He's a legend of American history, did a whole bunch of different stuff, one of our founding fathers, so check him out. But anyway, there's 24 hours in a day. It's the same for you, me, the rest of the 8 billion people on this planet, and it was the same for Benjamin Franklin when he dropped those one-liners. Your age doesn't matter, your financial status doesn't matter, what time you woke up today doesn't matter. You have 24 hours to work with each day, no matter what. Inevitably, you've come across some people in your life who seem to have time for everything, and they're constantly getting things done. But even for them, there's only 24 hours in a day. How are they able to do this? How can they manage all their commitments? They use their time wisely, and it's likely that they schedule. Before I get any further into this video, I want to preface by saying goals and scheduling go hand in hand. So if you listen to the staircase of goal setting, there's going to be a bit of overlap between these two videos. But anyway, chances are you have a bunch of things you want to do, and chances are you also feel some subtle disappointment when you don't get to everything you wanted to, and it's accentuated by the fact that you probably aren't making any time for yourself. You may use the fact that I just mentioned as an excuse. There's only so many hours in a day, right? Obviously, that's an inescapable fact, but it should be used as a motivating factor rather than a cop-out excuse. You're probably taking care of the crucial tasks each day, and then before you know it, the day's over, you're in bed, having spent little or no time on personal interests outside of your required duties. To me, I think this kind of initiates a vicious, almost robotic cycle where you're living to fulfill your responsibilities and not actually to fulfill yourself. And obviously, you need to satisfy your responsibilities. You're going to have to work to pay the bills, but that should never be the entirety of your existence. Without some kind of plan, it's easy to fall into this trap of thinking that you have no time when really it's your time management that's lacking, and it'll be really hard to accomplish what you want in a given day. I think a great example is weekends. A lot of people go into the weekend happy for a break from work, excited for some free time to enjoy themselves, and they might have a few things or maybe even a lot of things that they want to do that weekend, but before they know it, it's over. It's Monday again, and they're a little disappointed, wondering where the time went, and probably saying to themselves, I guess I'll have to do that next weekend. And despite those things that you wanted to get done, a lot of times it's easier to just fall into the trap of relaxing and watching TV, or in this day and age, chances are you pick up your phone every chance you get and scroll around on some social media app and waste away the little free time that you have. If this is not true for you, congratulations, because I strongly believe that you're in a small minority, especially if you're around my age. And how many of you can relate to this? Because I know this has been a common theme for me in years past. But this is where scheduling comes in. Without a schedule, I think it's really easy to end up in that weekend scenario I just described. Maybe you lose track of time, maybe you forget a few of the things you had in mind, maybe you just don't feel like doing the things you thought of. No matter what the reason, without some type of schedule to keep you accountable, it's easy to make excuses and not get everything done. This might be okay in the short term. Alright, you relaxed this weekend, you took it easy, and now you feel refreshed to tackle the upcoming week. I'm not going to lie, that's a good thing. It's good to decompress and come back to work re-energized, refreshed, and ready to go, but you absolutely cannot waste away every weekend. If this becomes a habit, you're going to start falling behind on your goals, and you're going to become disappointed in yourself because you're continually choosing relaxation and stagnation over action and improvement. Once again, you're slow walking your way into your nightmare future because you had no guide to keep you on track, and as a result, the excuses became easier. With a schedule, though, there's no room for this kind of behavior that just eats up your free time with no benefit whatsoever. Once you introduce this element of planning into your days and weeks, you'll notice that you're much more efficient. Even if it's tentative, you know what you want to do and you know what you need to do, and it's easy to tell if you're doing it or not. Instead of scrolling, you'll know exactly what to do next and even what you're going to do after that. A schedule eliminates uncertainty by filling downtime with productive activity. And an example I've been relying on in a bunch of my videos is the gym. I don't want to be redundant, but I do feel like it can act as a metaphor for a lot of other things. Without a schedule for the gym, you're not going to know when you're going, and without a detailed routine, you won't know what you're going to do when you get there. You're going to be kind of aimless because you don't have any structure, and you're most likely going to end up wasting time rather than efficiently moving from one exercise to the next because your plan is set. Looking at the bigger picture, this analogy holds true looking at life in general. The routine for the gym is a metaphor for your daily schedule. With the schedule, just like your lifts with the routine, your life will become structured and organized, but the most important thing is that you'll regain a sense of control. Something that I notice in a lot of people, and even in myself at times, is a feeling that they're not in control of their lives. They have certain obligations that need to be fulfilled, things happen that have to be dealt with. Life is hectic and it feels like they have no control. And I'm not here to refute that. I can't argue that because life is full of uncertainty, and it's not just unrealistic, it's impossible to control everything. And in fact, I think that's kind of a bad mindset to have to begin with because nobody likes an obsessive control freak. In regard to your own life, however, it doesn't feel good to feel like you have no agency. Having a schedule and adding structure to your life mitigates this problem because you're in command of your daily actions to the best of your ability, thus you're controlling your day-to-day life. By pre-planning your actions using a schedule, in a certain capacity you're controlling your future one day at a time. Since you're planning each day ahead of time, the outcome is already predetermined in a certain sense. You're just achieving what you already preordained for yourself, almost like a simplistic form of manifestation. Having a schedule will also help keep you consistent, on track, and build your confidence through achievement. Last week I talked about realistic goal setting, and I think scheduling ensures consistency, which goes a long way to keeping you on track for that long-term goal. If we go back to that gym example, you're never going to see the results you want if you go for a week and then you stop, and then you go for a week the following month, and then you go for 2 days and then you stop for 2 more weeks. You're never going to get there. You're never going to have any progress because there's no consistency. You're always stopping and starting, and there's no possibility to actually progress smoothly down the path without any interruption. By incorporating steps like we talked about last week with goal setting into your schedule, whether it's going to the gym like in my example or whatever your goal or hobby is, consistent engagement will irrefutably lead to progress towards the ultimate goal. The steps also become more tangible because they're actually included in your to-do list and you're in the routine of doing them. Additionally, this will help build your confidence as you work towards your ultimate goal because you'll see yourself achieving the smaller steps within your schedule repeatedly. This goes for all the things within your schedule and not just those related to your big goals. Achieving them will provide a sense of confidence and also a sense of accomplishment because you did what you said you were going to do. Think about when you're at work and you ask someone for help, or maybe you delegate a task to them. Aren't you happy when they follow through? The same is true for yourself. When you achieve the items on your schedule, you're going to build a sense of pride and happiness because you're doing what you asked yourself to do. Once again, this is showing yourself how much you care about yourself. Think about it. The same situation at work, but this time the person does not do what you asked. Maybe they forgot, maybe they didn't feel like it. Whatever the case may be, they clearly didn't care enough to make time for it. They didn't care about what the impact would be on you. Just like before, the exact same is true for you. You might not consciously realize it, or maybe you'll make up an excuse, but subconsciously you'll know. You didn't care enough about yourself to do what you said you were going to do. That's one of the great things about scheduling. Similar to goal setting, it holds you accountable to yourself and allows you to increase your self-worth simply by following through on what you said you were going to do. It also increases the likelihood that you will follow through because there's actually a visual representation of the tasks you want to achieve. It's not just all in your head where it can easily get lost. Having explained the importance of scheduling, I now want to explain how I schedule and maybe provide a little inspiration or a template, if you will. So, everyone's method is different. Some people might use a calendar or a notebook, but one thing that works for me is the Notes app on my phone. Each day before I go to bed, I outline a tentative schedule for the next day. If the next day is a work day, I'll include some things I want to get done at work so that when I get in, I can get right to whatever tasks I need to in a logical order and an efficient manner. And I like to include also what I'm going to eat, which also eliminates a certain level of uncertainty in my day. I'll include what I want to get done after work. Typically, this is going to be the gym, and then maybe I'll work on a personal project rather, or read a book depending on the day and how much time I have. And typically, I won't include a specific time that I want to do things by, or a time frame for that matter, just a general order that I would like to follow as I move through my day. Sometimes I'll include time limits though if I know I'm planning an activity that I can get caught up in, which could run long, and then it'll prevent me from getting to the rest of the things on my schedule. So I'll include like a max time, like, all right, I'm only going to spend an hour on this, and then I got to hang it up for the day. And as a result, I kind of consider my scheduling to be more of a daily guide than an actual schedule, but effectively it's a schedule. I also like to put an emoji check mark next to each item on the list when I achieve them. And it might sound dumb, you might think it's dumb, that's okay, but I get a genuine sense of accomplishment when I type that emoji in. And then when I look at my schedule from the day at the end of the day, and I got that green check next to each line, I feel really satisfied and proud of myself that I was able to achieve everything that I had envisioned the day before. I don't always get to everything though. Sometimes I'm too ambitious, sometimes things come up and I have to adjust and I move items to another day. I think it's important to not be so rigid that it's unacceptable if you don't get to everything. Inevitably, it's going to happen sometimes. It's just how it goes. Just like with the goals, though, it's crucial to hold yourself accountable while being realistic. On the whole, a schedule can be looked at as daily goals almost. They don't necessarily have to be related to your ultimate goal that we talked about last week, but something that you want to achieve is a goal. So technically, the items on your schedule are goals just on a daily basis. A final point that I want to touch on regarding scheduling and time management is sacrifice. When you're making a schedule or a daily guide like I do, there's going to be things that you have to leave off. You're going to have to assign some level of priority to certain tasks and guarantee that they get done within a given day. This may mean sacrificing other things that are important to you and other things that you wanted to do. If this doesn't appeal to you and you want to do everything, you're going to have to sacrifice elsewhere. Maybe you'll have to sacrifice some sleep, you might have to sacrifice some time with friends, and you're certainly going to have to sacrifice some time spent doing nothing or just sitting on your phone. That's going to have to go. Sacrifice is an inescapable part of scheduling because, as I mentioned before, there's only 24 hours in a day, and sometimes that just isn't going to be enough to get everything done, no matter how efficient you are, no matter how well you plan, no matter how well you schedule. There's nothing wrong with that. It's important to accept that as reality and try to be realistic with your schedule. Don't assign an unreasonable number of tasks for a given day. Don't overextend yourself, and try to be aware and cognizant of how long it's going to take you to accomplish the activities on your schedule. Of course, like a lot of things that I talk about, this is easier said than done, but it comes with practice, and with that practice, you're going to get the hang of it. You'll get better. It'll get easier in time. The sacrifice required to reach your dream future is definitely going to begin to become evident during scheduling when you have to leave stuff off and you can't make time for everyone, you can't make time for everybody because you got to make time for your priorities and your real goals that are going to take you to that dream future. Making those decisions, it's not always going to be easy, but it will always pay off. I promise the payoff is going to be worth it. Temporary pain for long-term satisfaction. So one more thing that I want to make sure I mention in this video, and especially when it comes to scheduling, a lot of my advice is you got to take it with a grain of salt if you have kids. It's not to say scheduling isn't still going to be important and impactful with kids, but if you have kids, it's inherently a major time commitment each and every day, and it's going to take away a lot of the pre-existing free time from your life. I don't have kids right now, So it's easy for me to talk freely about these topics and how I can plan my days and my weeks, and I can move efficiently from one thing to the next because I don't have that requirement. I don't have those interruptions where I have to take care of somebody else and I have to meet their needs. I'm just focused on myself. I'm locked in on me. But when you have kids, that's not your life anymore. That's not reality. I don't want to downplay it and be like, "Oh, nah, you don't have to schedule anymore." No, scheduling might even become more important when you have kids, but it's just going to come down to those sacrifices like I said before, and you're not going to the kids aren't going to be a sacrifice. It's going to be some of the other things that you wanted to do. You're going to have to deal with the kids. You might have to sacrifice something else that was important to you, but you're accountable to your kids. They depend on you for everything. So you're going to I don't know. It's just important that you put that first and make that the main priority of your schedule. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that during this video because it's something that I don't know about right now from personal experience, but it would be kind of obtuse for me to be preaching about scheduling without talking about the difficulties that come with scheduling and having kids. Like, you're going to have to take their needs into account first is basically what I'm trying to say, I guess. And like I said, that's not to say you shouldn't still make time for your hobbies or your interests, but it's definitely important to realize that's going to cost a lot more, and there's going to be a lot more sacrifices when you have kids than when you don't. And I know I mentioned this lyric before, but I think it's a pretty relevant one to end off the video with today. So we're going back to that J. Cole lyric. Life is all about the evolution. You can dream, but don't neglect the execution. Combining scheduling with realistic goal setting will ensure that you're not neglecting the execution. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you're able to take something from this today, and good luck implementing the scheduling and goal setting. Thank you.